Well, it's no secret if you're a Valley sports fan, we've seen some questionable ownership decisions across the years, but have we seen the worst of it recently? It's another edition of Southwest Bias.
Get that stuff out of here. It's Southwest Bias.
And this edition of Southwest Bias is brought to you by Desert Financial Credit Union, Arizona's #1 credit union named by Forbes. And we'll get more into some money stuff later, but I've got Craig Morgan alongside me, and I've got the wonderful Bo Brock. But Craig, what the hell is going on with the Coyotes? They're supposed to have a land auction. Now the land auction is canceled. The whole story for the last 6 months has been, what the hell is going on? How the hell do they end up in Utah? So I'm going to throw the ball up to you or pass the puck along. What's happening?
First off, I want to point out that Bo and I are both on the Cardinals beat.
That's right.
Which is what we should be talking about and what I hope to be writing about this past weekend. But once again, the Coyotes ripped me away for some more drama, and that's the way it's been for the past 15 years. I'm not sure how far you want to go back in this timeline, Erik.
Craig, I want to get you out of this toxic relationship. How can we
We're back to the relationship analogies.
Help me.
Oh my
I don't know how to
gosh.
escape it. I really need some.
We
I
need
need
to
some
have a
advice from
conversation
someone
after
here.
this, okay?
Yeah. Let's just talk about the Morello timeline.
Please.
There's a whole lot of baggage with this franchise that predates Alex Morello. There are a lot of other, as you put it, questionable ownership groups that have come through. But he bought the team in 2019. And in the span of less than 5 years, where I guess we're closing in on 5 years now, he lost the arena they were playing in. And granted, as I said, there's a lot of baggage with Glendale that predates Alex Morello, but they didn't handle those negotiations very well. So they were left homeless, and they had basically no options. So they had to go play at a 4,600 seat college arena, which raised the hackles of players, of the Players Association, of a lot of people around the league saying it was an embarrassment to the league. But we had the hope that they were going to build an arena in Tempe on what is, it's a dump. Let's just say it, Tempe. Most of you know it's a dump. There are some politicians that are lying to you, that lied throughout the campaign and told you it was something else. But it's a dump, and you're going to have to clean it up, and you're probably going to have to pay for it yourselves now instead of letting Alex Morello pay for it. The failure there, though, was that Alex Morello didn't run a good campaign. They had all the business leaders behind him. They had all the political leaders behind him, other than Lauren Kuby. And they just botched the campaign.
So when you say they botched the campaign, what specifically does that mean?
First of all, they didn't hire professionals to run this thing. They didn't hire really good campaign people. Secondly, their messaging was terrible. We're talking about building the Rodeo Drive of Arizona in Tempe. Like, does that resonate with anyone? Maybe the news site in North Scottsdale would, but it didn't in Tempe. But beyond that, they didn't know who their voting public was going to be for a special election. It was 50-plus NIMBYs who were cranky about just about everything in life.
Traffic.
So, yes, exactly. So you need to message to them. You need to spend the money instead of sending your players and your staff door to door to do it for you, while the other campaign was a bunch of professionals that were, yes, they were spreading misinformation, absolutely, but they knew what they were doing. Alex Morello said at that news conference when Gary Bettman announced the team was being sold that they had spent $7 million. Randy Keating, council member for Tempe, quote tweeted that and said, "Public records show you spent 1.1." So
that's a big
where's
difference.
the disparity there? And I had so many sources telling me we asked for money right after the council voted 7-0 to push forward with this. And Alex denied them. They ran a crap campaign. They lost. And we've seen what's happened since. They're in Hail Mary mode with this. I know we're going to get to this, so I'll let you talk again.
No, please, Craig. This is why you are here. This is why this edition of Southwest Bias is
what created
Craig
this
Morgan.
issue, right? Tempe was the fatal sin.
Yeah.
Blowing that, because that was a great deal. It was an incredible deal for the city. It really was. Now they've got a dump site that they're going to have to deal with, but he blew it. He was this far. He had all the support behind him. All you got to do is spend the money and close the deal, and he didn't do it.
Well, Bo, from your perspective, obviously, yes, you are on the PHNX Cardinals beat and everything like that. However, this was not something that anybody in the state of Arizona could ignore. Like, if you were involved or like any sports at all, even if you're not a hockey fan. So from your perspective, did you expect when the vote came down that Tempe would say no? Like, was that shocking to you?
Yes, it was. It was shocking to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even though in hindsight, using the benefit of 20/20 vision, is that they didn't do the right campaigning. They didn't put in the right preparation. In the entire, you see this throughout Morello's ownership history. It's just like he wanted to use the almighty NHL shield and the almighty dollar as flex tape, and he'll just slap it on any problem he has. And he ran out. And I used to have old program directors. Anytime before we go on air at radio, they'd always joke, just don't lose the license, right? But Morello lost the license. Like, that's what he did. He had one thing that he could take care of, that he just had to hold on to, that even poor ownership groups before him were able to hold on to. And Bettman was like, okay, we can at least work with this, move forward with this huge media market. And Morello couldn't even keep that. I mean, that's the true sign of that you're dealing with somebody that's above and beyond bad. I mean, you talk about, I've been in this media market for over a decade now, and we've seen, as you mentioned, some poor ownership, from, on the football side of things, most recently on the NBA side of things.
Yep.
But they at least were able to keep those professional sports teams in the market afloat and finding a way, even despite the side of their shovel and the hole that they dug themselves into, a way out. And now it seems like we finally run out, and Morello is the reason for that. Like, you talk about voters in the Tempe situation, and people want to point the finger to them, and it's just a sitting landfill now. But at the end of the day, the real true person to blame is Morello and his ownership group.
And so when we look at all of this, right, it's okay, the Tempe vote closes, and then it almost is like you blink your eye and all of a sudden the Arizona Coyotes are in Utah. Right. And I know when you're in the moment, it's okay, so many things are happening. And I know, like, watching you and reporting on it and seeing everything, it's like it didn't just happen in the blink of an eye. But if you look at it from a wide scale, it's like, wow.
Yeah. It was 11 months.
Right. Now they're gone.
Yeah.
Is it fair to say part of the reason why a lot of powers that be were maybe eager to move to Utah is just because they didn't have confidence that Morello could take care of the Coyotes here?
That's absolutely it. First off, Gary Bettman said it in the news conference when he looked Alex Morello in the eye. Javier Gutierrez, the president and CEO of the franchise, was telling me it's a 3-year construction timeline for this site in Northeast Phoenix that they were supposed to have a land auction on. We'll get to that in a minute. But Gary Bettman looked him in the eye and said, can you really tell me it's going to be 3 years? And they couldn't. They couldn't guarantee that it was just going to be 3 years. And there was no way that the NHL wanted to sign off, by the way, while getting heavy pressure from the PA, which is under new leadership with Marty Walsh, the former mayor of Boston, who understands the power of rhetoric. They're under immense pressure. And now you're talking, is it going to be 4 or 5 more years at Mullet? Are we going to play 6 seasons at Mullet Arena? It's affecting league revenues. It's affecting player salaries. That's the point where they had to pull the plug. Obviously, Morello got a sweet deal out of it because he had him over a legal barrel, but they had to get away from this situation. And let's be honest, the league really wanted to get away from Alex Morello.
Well, especially if he had them over a barrel, right? If it's like, man, this guy has illegal rights, we got to give him the reactivation rights and everything like that. But we're so willing to just get out that we don't care. That's a big deal.
Well, I mean, I feel like the NHL left the door ajar as long as they possibly could, and then some, right? But to use a poor analogy, I mean, I think that the NHL was the Coyotes' parents, and they gave the ultimatum, hey, get your own place, but you can stay here until then. And when it came down to it, they're a month out, and they said, you got a job? Do you have any prospects?
Yeah.
Like, do you have anything like that's set up to get your own place? It's like, oh yeah, I'll figure that out when the time comes. But had nothing going for him. Just really had nothing going for him. The last ditch effort with Tempe, once that came, it was scramble mode. But then the NHL saw the writing on the wall, and good on them finally.
Yeah. And I'm not sure like the full history behind every single franchise that has moved, but if you look at a team like the Oakland Athletics right now, that move is being pushed by their ownership group, right? It's not, hey, the league's coming in and telling you have to move out of Oakland and into Las Vegas, right?
And that's often the case.
And I'm sure the league's fine with it, but this is
with multiple
completely
moves,
different.
like different franchises. It's usually driven by the owner. Yeah.
Say, you give us the public funding, or we're going to take our ball and go elsewhere.
Right. Yeah. And so I think that just paints the picture to where a lot of people, especially people who are not like understanding of the situation as a whole, will be like, oh, well, they just didn't have enough support here. Oh, well, like the fans wouldn't show up. Oh, it's this person's fault, this person's fault, and also Alex Morello's fault. And as somebody who has been as close to the fans and the franchise and the players and the organization as probably any person in this state, is that at all fair to say?
No, I don't think it is. And listen, I covered it when they were successful. I saw them downtown when they were drawing well. I saw them during the Tippett years when they were drawing well. we know this is a fair weather market. And I don't even consider that an insult. I consider fans who show up for a good product educated fans. Why should I support a crap product? Sorry, give me something that's worth paying for. I don't mind that approach. But the Coyotes didn't win very often. They never did anything to turn on this fan base. But that goes back to the ownership groups. They've never had stability in the ownership seat, and it's trickled down to every facet of the franchise, mostly financially, right? You can't spend money on the things that make you a good franchise. Sadly, they finally had the hockey ops thing locked down with Bill Armstrong and his scouting and development staff, and then they're gone.
And then poof, and you're losing everything over to Utah.
Literally.
And
well, you know, the team's still here, as Alex Morello told us. It was just the players and coaches and staff that left.
Yeah, it's the bones, right? Yeah. It's like if just the skin of a human was around and be like, oh yeah, I know grandma's still here. Like that's not the same.
It's just a bag of flesh.
Just a bag of basically
the Arizona Coyotes.
I mean, I think that's generous, to be honest with you. And before we get into the land auction stuff, I want to touch on that point about the hockey ops side of it. And you know, heard Bill Armstrong speak a lot about how long a rebuild takes and about what percentage of the way they're through. And you just kind of started to see a lot of this young talent either bud into the league for the first time, or like you guys obviously cover the Roadrunners religiously as well. That I think adds on to the, hey, this is one of the worst like managements of a sports team ever, because there was actually hope here. There was something to look forward to. There was
makes it all the more painful for fans.
There was a competent process. It wasn't like, wow, this team from top to bottom, hockey ops and everything, just can't get it together. Get them out of here. No, the product on the ice and the product that was promised for the next couple of years was something that diehard Coyotes fans were almost ravenous about. And that just makes it suck a little bit extra. Like
it does. When Bill Armstrong came on board, I asked him how long he hoped. You know, his whole MO was acquire draft assets. He just, because he's a scout by trade, he had done it for 2 decades, and he knew if you want to sustain success, especially in a market where you can't spend to the cap, it's not Toronto, you have to build through the draft. So he acquired a record amount of draft assets. And I asked, how long would you like to do this? Ideally, how long would you like to be able to do it? And he said, I hope ownership gives me 5 years. Well, they are, because this is year 4 now. They're just about to go into the draft. And so he's been able to play out his exact plan, and now he's playing it out in Utah.
Like, trust the process with the 76ers, but the 76ers moved to, Orlando, and they have and you have to watch Joel Embiid or Logan Cooley now go play elsewhere. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, now we're sitting where the Coyotes franchise is in Utah, and we'll talk about that branding and that jersey at the very end of this. But now you're coming to the point of, well, if you ever want hockey back in the Valley again, some people say Alex Morello and the Morello family, they're your number one option. All you need them to do is win this land auction coming up during the summer, the same land auction that was going to be on the table if the Coyotes stayed in Arizona up there in North Scottsdale. And out of nowhere, not only does the land auction not happen, it's just canceled. Yeah. It's just boom, canceled. What the hell does that mean, and why did it happen?
Well, they need a special use permit, and as the Arizona Republic reported back in December, and I've been talking about this for months now, they knew they needed a special use permit. Okay, so why didn't you have that locked down? Here's what I think happened here. You find out in December you need a special use permit for the land. That process, I've been told by a couple of zoning attorneys, takes 8 to 10 months. You got Gary Bettman saying, hey, I need an answer from you by the end of the season. Do the math. December to April, that doesn't work. So the hope is go to the land auction, get the land, and then try and get the zoning, which is crazy, right? Because it's a massive risk. You spend $68.5 million was the minimum bid. Yeah. Even if he shows up alone, he's got to pay that for the land. And then you go to the city of Phoenix and say, yeah, I want a special use permit. What if the city of Phoenix says no? What do you do with the land then? Right. You can't build what you wanted to build on it. Right. I don't know what happens. So it's a massive risk, but I think that's why he operated the way he did, because he simply didn't have the time to get the special use permit. Why? Because he was, as you mentioned, he was in scramble mode because they lost the Tempe election that they were certain they were going to win. They were telling people. I had someone call me right before the vote saying, you come into the celebration party tonight. I'm like, are you that confident? Yeah, it's going to be a rout. And it was a rout, except the other way. So that's what created all this. And you just didn't have the time to do what you had to do. Now, do I think this is the end for him? I don't. I think he might go ahead with getting the zoning permit and still try to schedule the land auction, which of course is its own process, a minimum of 10 weeks that it has to be posted after you get the land auction. So we're talking about another year before we could have an auction. And then you need a really sped up timeline for construction, because the stipulation with this agreement was you need to reactivate the franchise by December 27th, I think it is, of 2027 or the end of 2027. So he's got 3.5 years to reactivate the franchise. And you also have to have the arena 50% built by then.
Ooh.
So if you're moving this a year out, now you're talking about 2.5 years before you could possibly start. And that's ignoring the possibility of more roadblocks, more delays, right?
Yeah.
So it's really tight right now.
Jeez.
Well,
I do think he'll look at that. I think he'll look at other possibilities as well.
You should be confident he's got everything else figured out, right? Because he's had so much figured out before this.
I am going to look tomorrow, but I don't know when it's coming. I don't know if it's coming tomorrow or sometime. But just be on the lookout for what's next for Alex Morel's story at gophnx.com, because, I can't dive into this Cardinals beat full time. I'm just not allowed. I have to.
you have to talk about zoning and land auctions and everything like that. I will touch on that in a second. I do want to remind people, though, that this episode of Southwest Bias is brought to you by Desert Financial Credit Union. And this is the perfect first episode to be brought to you by Desert Financial, because we have two of Desert Financial's biggest advocates here. I walked in this building and they said, "Hey, I know that you use Desert Financial, but this is the house that Craig Morgan built."
Well,
okay.
Wow.
Bo, do you bank there as well?
I do. Yeah, I love Desert Financial. I mean,
it was actually a rhetorical question. You go ahead and finish your thought first.
Well, I mean, I think it's just the only competent financial institution that we should entrust. Maybe
there we go.
The future of maybe hockey in the desert. Maybe they could be our saviors.
It's also the place that both Bo and I trust with, our gold reserves.
Well, that's what I was saying.
We might get a tour of our vault someday.
Yep. I would love to. I was hoping that,
Yep.
maybe, I know that me and you, we butt heads a little bit on the last PHNX hockey show when I was producing. I figured this was maybe extending the olive branch. I'd love to see the vault.
You have gold. I just actually have an Arizona Cardinals debit card.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah,
well, you can get
treat as gold.
An Arizona Cardinals debit card. You can get a Sun Devils debit card as well, which you talked about some Sun Devils content. Craig Morgan did write about ASU and how COVID impacted their various different sports. That's on GoPHNX.
3,600 words if you want to check that out.
Fantastic read. And also
an audio option for those.
I would pay for a Craig Morgan audio.
No, I don't see. I want to hear a better voice. I don't have a radio voice.
Oh, you got a good voice.
You guys
man.
could both read it.
You want to alternate words?
Yeah.
No, I think we get like Morgan Freeman to narrate it. I think
Craig Morgan Freeman?
Mm-hmm.
That seems like something that AI would do. Anyway, guys, for more than 84 years, Desert Financial has been Arizona's largest, most trusted local credit union, dedicated to creating exceptional experiences by giving back to the community, i.e. us three here, and all of you guys. Not only do they have locations all across the valley, not only are they here for the basics, your checkings, your savings, but also your loans, mortgages, credit cards, investment options, and more. Or as what I like to call the Erik Ruby special, which is losing your debit card and having to go and get it replaced. Guys, they are here for you. And not only do they have all of that, but they can give you $200 for free, just right there. I know that doesn't mean much to a man with a gold vault, but
you pass go, you get $200.
You get $200 for free, man. When you open a free checking account online, you get $200 in bonuses. Just get started by visiting desertfinancial.com/200. Craig, do you have any faith at all that the Coyotes will return to Arizona with Alex Morello at the helm?
I'm not going to close the door. Listen, theoretically, it's still possible for some of the reasons that I laid out, more that I'll lay out in that story. I think it's still possible, but the track record's not good. Do I believe hockey will be back in Arizona someday? Yes, I do. I think the 5-year timeline is really optimistic. I think it's going to take longer than that.
So how does that work if he doesn't get a new arena built and 50% of it and all of that done in time? Does it just become open season?
Yes.
Any billionaire
Deputy
can come
Commissioner
in?
Bill Daley told me that it's just like any other NHL expansion city.
Okay.
You line up and we'll see who has the best proposal. We already know that they're building an arena in Atlanta, so I would guess that Atlanta's near the top of the list at this point, but we'll see how it plays out over the next few years.
They would bring back the Thrashers before the Coyotes?
It's amazing, right? That'd be the third try for the Atlanta market with the Flames and the Thrashers.
Well, the book is still open apparently. When it comes to Alex Morello and the Coyotes, of course, you're going to want to follow along with Craig Morgan on GoPHNX.com, on his Twitter/X account, and on PHNX Hockey as well. But let's move into maybe, I want to say something more fun. I'd say more lighthearted. I don't know if it's fun because we're still talking about a franchise that left and a franchise that meant so much to the state. But what kind of adds on to the sting if we just keep on piling up? Like, oh man, they've got a good, farm system, for lack of a better term. Oh, and they've got good and competent hockey ops. And and the fans were still showing up for Mullen and everything like that. I want to add something else on top of there.
More salt in this wound.
More salt into Salt Lake City, man, is that the move to Utah is not one that comes with zero problems and not one that even seems fully thought out at all. How do you come to terms with that, Craig? Not only as somebody who, yes, you covered the team, but you have been here through the highs and through the lows, and to see this state get its franchise ripped away and move to a spot where maybe it seems a little rushed, little not thought out.
On the league's part, I'll say that. I don't want to lay any blame at the feet of Ryan and Ashley Smith, the owners of the Utah Jazz, who are now the owners of the Utah Hockey Club, as it will be called for the next year before they choose one of an assortment of awful singular nicknames, which we're not going to discuss on this show.
We're going to get there at the end. We're going to get there at the end, just for you, Craig. Just for you.
Might not be a good idea because it doesn't brand well or something like that, whatever that means.
This is what our fight was over. Anyways.
All right. But here's what I'll say. Ryan Smith wanted an expansion franchise. That was his stated purpose all along to bringing NHL hockey to Salt Lake City. He wanted the runway that bringing an expansion franchise allows you to plan. He wanted to build a new arena. Now, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. They're going to have to renovate the Delta Center, which we can talk about that because that's a basketball arena. I have been to it. I know they did some renovations of it, but it is not a great venue. In fact, I talked to a Salt Lake reporter who said it's basically a trash hockey arena. Wow. It's got not 10,000, is it, unobstructed views?
I think it's about that. It's not significantly
and I have
more.
people telling me, you go up in the balcony, there's even more than that obstructed. They're gonna do some work. They're gonna have to do some work on it. I'm not sure how well they can do the work. It's a 32-year-old arena.
Yeah.
Right now, it's the third oldest arena in the NHL.
Jeez.
So
we were watching Stockton and Malone play hoops there for the Jazz. It was constructed so you could get primo views of the mailman in Stockton.
But you got to put a bigger ice surface in now. How do you do that? It's going to be problematic, okay? Yeah. But I don't blame them for being behind the eight ball because they wanted time, and all of a sudden the league said, "Hey man, can you do us a solid and take this team now?" So they did, and there's going to be a lot of hiccups in the first year of this franchise. Without question, there will be hiccups, including the fact that they don't have a name.
Well, right. But, and speaking to football, obviously it's not a relocation, but we saw a franchise go through a renaming process and just be generic name number one,
the Washington football team,
right? And then they come out on the other end of it, and they're like, "Okay, it's Commanders. It's okay,
very
right?
Bland and generic in its own right,
exactly." Yeah. And so now you're looking at Utah, and we'll talk about the names, but I want to talk about the jerseys because when these first surfaced, these were passed around in Slack here and with friend groups that I know, and just said we went from probably the best branding in jerseys or one of the best in sports with the Kachina and everything like that to generic created jersey number one with the Utah. And
but here's my argument. Salt Lake. I mean, it being generic and bland, that's kind of that's what they've got going on there.
It still hurts. Right? It still sucks to see the comparison.
I thought, obviously, Kachina and everything that they had done as far as the branding for the Coyotes franchise from, when they started in the late 90s to now. Like, they did a very good job in creating a culture that also kind of fit the market that they were in. Mm-hmm. So to see it go away, and like the Utah jerseys or sweaters that they have, man, are they? I mean, you could find a youth hockey team with more flair than this. Like, it is, and they use like a cool color scheme. Like, at least, like when you look for shoes, when you look for Jordans, like the black and the Carolina blue and the white, those are heavily sought out.
But it almost makes it worse, right? Where it's a good colorway and you still look at it and just go, ugh. Like how do you mess up that nice light blue and the white and the black and everything like that? And I get it, it's like, okay, it's Utah, we don't have a name yet. We don't have the branding. We're just going to kind of trot it out there. But you even saw it with a team like the Jazz, where their jerseys in the 90s had some of the most flair?
Yeah.
Possible. So it's not like this far-fetched, how could we get a nice creative design? It really just feels like they went into like random hockey jersey generator and typed in the colors and then, okay, stripes there, and go. It's stupid. It's stupid. I'll say it.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
Well, I mean, it's like a step up from a potato sack, which I think was maybe their other option. Like having to
I
do
maybe
this on
would
the
have
fly.
preferred the potato sack. It would have been different, okay?
Just Logan Cooley out there, just ripping, having hat tricks, and he's wearing a potato sack.
I would actually, I would be more likely to watch Utah hockey club games if they were playing in a potato sack. I will say that. But Craig, what are your thoughts on the jersey? Strong opinions?
It's
No.
funny. Well, I actually prepared something.
Oh.
Here, so I'm going to read this. But it's interesting what you're talking about too. What is Salt Lake's identity? Like,
Right.
what do you think of?
Mountains.
Yeah, like that's about it, right?
That's literally
so
it.
That's part of the
snowboarding,
problem,
maybe?
I guess. But look, I'm not a uniform guy. I'm
Mhm.
really not. I don't spend my time on social media judging the respective fashion statements of pro and college teams. While I appreciate that fashion is an art form, a large portion of what people like is based on personal taste, mindless trends, and definitely the influence of their peer group. I think most fashion followers are just that, followers. Sheep, blindly following the herd in the next hot trend. I don't like tight pants on men. I don't like high hip pants on women.
What is going on?
And I don't like jerseys on anyone outside of sporting events. Nobody's talking me out of these opinions, so don't bother with your rebuttals, okay? When I look at the hockey jerseys in Utah, I actually don't mind the colors as much as others. I know that these colors have something to do with Utah, so I've been told, because, again, Salt Lake City really doesn't have an identity, but there's rock black, mountain blue, and salt white. I want a blue jersey. I think it would look the best. I think it's the most interesting possibility. So maybe they could make that their third uniform. I mean, if this were Moab, I would have pushed for Red Rock, but it's not. It's Salt Lake, which, again, has no identity. We all know that my greatest issue with the new team, other than the fact that it used to be the one that I covered, is the horrible singular nicknames between which they are choosing. But Erik Ruby has told me to avoid this discussion because there's no way to brand it. So let's look at the overall design.
Oh my goodness.
I like
dude.
simplicity. I hate the current trend of blinged out, flashy uniforms. I'm probably in the minority in saying that I hate the Jazz's new uniforms. I think they look tacky, like something you'd find on the rack at Walmart. But they're not as bad as the team's nickname, which has no tie whatsoever to the state of Utah.
Amen to
But
that.
again, I was told to avoid this topic.
Bro.
So with the hockey jerseys, I'd like to see the third option. I think that would be the most interesting. I don't mind stripes on the sleeves or at the waist, but overall, these uniforms are not going to win any contests. Nobody's going to label Utah's uniforms as some of the best in the NHL. They are what they are. They're mid, basic, not offensive, but just okay. Vegas crushed it with their new uniforms. Seattle crushed it with their new uniforms. Utah hasn't yet, but when it chooses mammoths or yetis in a year, provided the NHL doesn't shoot it down because it violates trademark agreements with the Colorado Avalanche, Utah has a chance to nail it as well with their rebrand. Until then, their jerseys are just like the rest of this rushed and not quite ready product in Salt Lake City. It's a work in progress.
It's well put.
Yeah.
I feel called
thought he
out.
wasn't supposed to say anything.
No, listen.
What'd I say?
Listen.
I say something?
My point, and we're just gonna get into this here, okay?
Wow.
We're just gonna get into this.
Ruby.
We're gonna pull the curtain back, okay? Because you're this far into this episode of Southwest Bias, you're gonna hit that like
The
button.
longest episode of Southwest
That's right.
Bias ever.
You're gonna subscribe to PHNX, and you're here because of the wonderful mind that is Craig Morgan, and of course, you know everything
they're
we're
here
talking
for
about
Bo.
the Coyotes. No, nobody's here for Bo. I'm here for Bo. That's about it. Listen,
I'm gonna be here for you after this
Wow.
episode.
Listen,
Yes.
I do feel a little attacked, a little bit, but it's okay. I'm gonna just shrug it off and be the bigger
Okay.
man here and just
Okay.
tell the truth. Okay, I'm gonna tell the truth to the people, me and you. Okay. My problem was not with discussing singular nicknames in sports or the fact that I think it would be a great conversation. I do think that is good content and that is something that some people would like to listen to or to watch. However, in this business, as both of you know, it takes a lot to get somebody to click on a video, even if the content is great, right? And my worry was that if we brought the wonderful Craig Morgan on and the entire thing was branded around singular nicknames, not enough eyes would be on Craig Morgan. So I figured if we talk about maybe something that you can brand it a little bit better
This is
as.
such an inside baseball.
I'm just
breakdown.
saying.
We don't need to know all this.
I'm just saying. I have no problem with the conversation. So
What
Craig,
if you just use this as the headline? Mammoth is the worst nickname in the history of pro sports.
Yeah.
How about that? Did I just brand it for you?
Maybe.
Okay.
Tell you what, we can maybe do a separate video. We'll compare the clicks on that. But let's talk about names because it's Utah Hockey Club, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of these names are singular. I have 20 in front of me of what they could be called. Let's just run through them rapid fire.
Well, we have the finalists now. Do
we have the finalists? Okay, tell me the finalists.
Down to Mammoth, Yeti, Utah Hockey Club, and Outlaws.
So they might keep Hockey Club.
I doubt they'll keep Hockey Club. If they do, that would be a colossal mistake.
Yeah, I mean, I think the football team was a finalist for the Commanders. So they put it in there because with anything, you're going to kind of get a group of people that want to keep it, the status quo. I like the Yeti.
The
Singular.
Yeti.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would the Yetis is fine with me.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I even like Mammoths. I mean, they may be a little slow, but they're big, and I'm actually, as I found out, because I did this kind of research, this is like Sean DePaz level research here. I researched how fast Yetis can run, and they can easily, or Mammoths.
I was going to say Yetis.
Mammoths
We've got the combine stats for a Yeti.
Yeah, the vertical leap was incredible. Mammoths can outrun a human. So they're very fast, apparently. So I'd be okay with either Mammoths or
Yeti could probably
Yetis.
outrun a human.
Oh,
too.
Yeti probably could too, yeah. But, I mean, they don't exist. Really.
Right, I was going to
Wait,
say
what?
Yeah, anyway.
That's breaking news.
I'm okay with either of those as long as there's an
we have
S
a
on the
40
end.
time on that?
His get off speed's a little slow, but once he gets momentum, he can really get going.
What do you Outlaws? Do you think Outlaws in Utah?
No, I think Outlaws kind of sounds like a hockey
caffeine.
team. Yeah,
Exactly. Like, come on. What are we talking about?
Past 7:30 today. Don't lock me up. No, Yetis is fine. See, here's the thing with the singular nickname is that I don't think it sounds bad. The Utah Mammoth. I think that sounds good.
Until you start using it in writing and
that's a very Craig Morgan problem or a writer's problem. Okay, I'm thinking of the people.
I think it sounds good in concept, but then in practice, it's terrible.
Utah Mammoth flows off the tongue better than Utah Mammoths. Right or wrong?
That's fair because of the THS, but Yetis sounds great.
Yeah.
I think I just got put in a box there.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Well, anything else to say about Utah, Morello, the Coyotes, anything like that? Or have we sufficiently covered that for this edition of Southwest
The thing I'd
Bias?
love to say is I just went off this crazy train. I just went off.
You have no choice.
I don't.
You're on it until the wheels fall off.
That's the truth.
And if you want to follow along, what's your Twitter/X account where they can follow you at?
At Craig S. Morgan.
At Craig S. Morgan. But not only Coyotes, Utah Hockey Club, Morello, land auctions, zoning content, but you also get Cardinals content as well, ASU content, one of the best writers in the Valley. You can watch him on the PHNX Hockey Show, but you could also go to gophnx.com, read all of his wonderful work. As for the wonderful Bo Brock, you can follow him on Twitter at Bo Brock. You can Singular, not Bo Brock.
I'll never be a mascot.
And not Bo's Brock.
The fighting bows.
The fighting bows? No, but we can like the fighting artichokes. Maybe the best nicknames.
Oh, fantastic. Love that.
Can't be the fighting artichoke. Can't be that. It's got to be the fighting artichokes.
Right.
Right. Okay, I'm
You
catching
remember the
on.
original colors too, right?
Oh, yeah.
Was it purple?
Pink and green.
Pink and green.
Awesome.
Oh, man.
See what happens when you put it in the hands of students? I love it. That's great.
All right, you can follow Bo Brock at Bo Brock. You can watch PHNX Cardinals live every weekday at 4:30, breaking down everything about your favorite football team here in the Valley. You can follow myself at Erik Ruby. That's Erik with a K. You can catch me on PHNX Sun Devils at 1:30 every single weekday. And of course, you can subscribe right here. Hit that subscribe button underneath to PHNX Sports, and you'll be keeping yourself tuned in. Maybe turn the notifications on. Hit that bell so you know when the next edition of Southwest Bias goes live. But until then, guys, we'll talk to you later this week.
Get that stuff out of here. It's Southwest Bias.